Is it started? I guess so. Let's see. Oh yeah, it does. So let me quickly start the video here as well for my convenience. Okay. And then I will start about my introduction. I'm just waiting for a couple of things. I know it's just something not good. So this is my first live video. So if there is something you don't like it, just mention in the comment section. So I will make sure that the next time I improve that. Because I believe in improvement. The more you practice, the better you become. So that's the basic funda here. Just give me a sec. This is creating everybody here. Ah, now it does look really good. So in improvement. Uh, yeah. The more you practice, the better you become. So that's the basic funda here. Just give me a sec. This just how to mute this. Okay, perfect. So with this phone, I can use it to track if someone is giving me comment or something. And this is my first live video, so welcome guys. And I really love talking to people. And before we proceed, you already see the topic, title, and description as well. So about myself, my name is Nitin Rawat. About my education background, just a brief. So I did my computer science and engineering in 2014 and 18. Then I worked for 5 years for IT as a senior data engineer consultant. 3 years for Capgemini, 2 years for ZS Associate, and I was working for Fortune 500 big companies. As far as the domain is concerned, my experience is mostly into retail plus pharma both sides. So it was quite of learning experience, and I met a lot of people who somewhere forged my career path. But in 2021, I decided to take a drop because I was exhausted. And for last 2 years and a half, I was just enjoying my life. And now, when I decided to come back into IT with full of energy, dude, one thing that I realized that I know something of everything, but not everything of something. Okay, it may sound a bit confusing, but the thing is, I think you might also experience that at times when you already done something, but you have a gap. And then when you come back, you realize, okay, I know this one, but it's hard to explain. And you feel like out of 100%, you know the 60 or 70%, but that 30 or 40% make you feel like, okay, I'm not good enough right now. If I apply for a job, if I get an interview, I'm not able to justify that interview because I am in that way. Until unless I feel confident enough, it's really hard for me to even apply. And that's why I was doing a lot of like that I will do it tomorrow. I was procrastinating. I was just delaying the things. And then I realized I should take accountability. And the accountability comes into this live session. So from today onwards, for next 60, 65, or 70, whatever days, is minimum is going to be 60. I'm going to start learn SQL from scratch because 2.5 years is really big and a lot of concept I forget. So I decided that since I started from very start and I have this channel I created, so why don't I do the live sessions? The best part of doing this one is I will learn everything from scratch. So if you're someone who is not from computer science background, or if you're not from someone who is preparing for interview, or if you're someone who is a fresher want to learn SQL from the scratch or who don't know about ABC of SQL, I think you can join this live session. It will give you the brief what exactly we are doing, how we are doing, because right now I do use AI and we are going to use AI extensively for our learning. But the thing is, at times someone who already knows 60 or 70% of the thing and he does AI, and when the value comes, he is able to relate. But what about the new people who don't know about the concepts? Let me give you a very good example. Suppose I ask AI, can you define computer for me? And he gave you computer is a machine which take the instruction, compute at the back end, and give you the answers, right? Something like this. I can understand because I worked for with the computers for last half or 1 decade at least, right? But the newcomer who don't know about computer itself, who don't know the what exactly the machine defines or what exactly machine means, what's the instruction. So he will be completely confused, right? That's the exact reason I decided to create this channel where I am trying to go for learning. So I already know the surface part. Now I'm going into depth. And when I'm going to depth from the surface, I'm going to learn everything from scratch. And since I decided to learn everything from scratch, why not document this thing? So it's gonna serve two things that I feel like. First one is it's going to increase my retention. So if you don't know about the T technique, I will explain in a bit. But before that, let me continue on this one. So it's gonna help me to increase my depth knowledge about the subject. Since I'm going to start from scratch, like from the surface to the bottom or depth, I'm going to learn everything and I'm going to do live. So you guys can also learn alongside with me. And if you have a question, you can put in the chat section. I will see, I will reply, and voila, we are both good, right? So that's the whole plan. And today is the first day, so I'm not going to keep it long. But I thought like if I have to start everything from scratch and I need to become an expert into this one. So first thing, the very first thing we should do, what we should do. Let's write it down. So let's get back here. So do. I think I can use OneNote. I love this tool. I hope. Yep. So learning, let's just start from here. I think how about I create a new one here? Okay. So let's name this tab as SQL in capital letters and we will name it day one. But what is day one for us? Day one, right now that I think if I have to start from scratch, like somebody who don't know about anything about SQL, right? So what is that first thing he or she do? Because initially when I was learning other subject, I realized that people blindly go to YouTube channel and whatever the shortcomings they start learning, they start. So what biggest drawback of this learning that I usually call fragmented learning. So in the fragmented learning, you learn a piece of thing from one place, then another piece from another place. But what you are missing in the whole scenario is the coherency. You are missing the structure. If you're learning everything in a structure, what gonna cost you? Let me tell you the biggest example of this one. In IT, what happened? You sometimes there are two scenarios. First one, in general, I'm telling you from my experience, when you need to talk to the business and understand their requirement and document that as part of SOP. Okay. So I'm not going into much detail, but let me get into this one. So that time you need to understand their problem, convert into a problem, a computerized problem that can be solved through coding or SQL, right? And this can only happen when you know the in and out about SQL, you know and out about your programming, be it Java, be it your C, Python, COBOL, any other language, right? Third is infrastructure for this data. So this is a long list, but we will, as we progress, So one thing for sure, we progress in this journey, I'm going to teach you. I'm not going to just learn with you, but sometime I'm going to teach you the experience I garner after working with US clients, Australian clients, few of the European clients, that how they work. Because this is gonna be really helpful for the new guys. Experienced guys don't need much, but sometimes you always learn from other people, right? There's nothing like not learning. So I will teach that as well. So I was talking about two things, right? First one is when you gather the information, when you gather the requirement, you need to be technically sound. If you are fragmented learning, the problem will be you will not be able to read a mind roadmap how you gonna convert this particular requirement into computerized problem or a machine problem. That will be first thing. Second, when you are working the development or in IT, not always gonna be like you are being put or you are being pulled or onboarded into a project that's going to start from scratch. Sometimes you will be onboarded on a project that's still ongoing, and at times when the entire thing is already there, they will come up with a new feature or they will try to fix some patch. And until unless you know about in and out of the software, in and out of programming language or SQL, you won't be able to understand what the other person have written. And trust me, the biggest challenge in coding is not learning and implementing, is try to understanding what other people have wrote the code, and that's the biggest challenge in the coding industry. And it happens like more than 50% of chances you will be onboarded on an ongoing project, and you will be asked to understand the flow what other person has developed, and he has left the organization for better opportunities, and now you have to take over his code. Firstly, you need to understand what he wrote. Trust me, it's one hell of activity to do. Second, if you're not learning the thing in a proper structure manner, you won't be able to understand what exactly he's trying to do. And the third thing that happens best when you learn a structurally course, when you try to develop a solution, you know that this particular topic will fit, or it may be able to uh, I can use or leverage this particular topic to answer or to tackle this particular problem that I need to solve as part of requirement. So that's the best thing that can happen if you learn in a structure way. That's why I decided to create a structure. So if we decided, so they were, so now uh, let me enlarge this. Okay. So since we decided to learn SQL, okay, very first thing we need to understand what is SQL, why it is needed, third, and how should we learn it? How should we learn it? Right? This is the basic thing you should be doing. So ultimately, the crux is today we're gonna learn about the road map of SQL. Okay, today in this particular live session, we're gonna do three things, or we're gonna answer three things. Okay, we will make sure that by the end of this live session, we will be able to answer what is SQL and why it is needed. And third one and the final one is like what and how we're gonna learn the SQL, what will be the roadmap. So let's get back to here. So day one is all about roadmap to learn SQL. Perfect. So now, since we are learning, let's go here. I have only one subscriber. Trust me, I think this is the. I don't remember if someone subscribed it because earlier I uploaded some videos, not sure because of that, or it is my other email ID, not sure. Doesn't matter. So, for this one, we're gonna leverage GitHub. What we're gonna do, we're gonna leverage GitHub to curate all the information that we learn and keep it here. Okay, so here, this is my GitHub link, GitHub / code for coin. That's the same name as our YouTube channel. Okay, you can simply go here to this first repository, that is SQL structured query language. Okay, and this three I created, and I we gonna leverage this in upcoming days. Might be, might not be, but I think I will see that. Not right at the moment. So let's go to number four. That is your number four, SQL 0 to hero. This is the repository that we're gonna leverage it throughout this course. Okay. And the first one that we're gonna do is syllabus. Okay, so this is the syllabus that we're gonna cover. I created it before coming into this live session. That will reduce our time to a greater extent. But before we move this one, we need to answer three things in this live, right? First one, what is exactly first one? First one is what is SQL? So there are a lot of free resources available like SQL Zoo, Lead Code, and others. Say, okay, basic, but that's not a question. Let's write what is SQL. That's our question, right? So SQL query language. Okay, so SQL. See, for pronouncing it, it can be pronounced in two ways. One is SQL that most people use, and few people also use SQL. So don't get confused with the pronunciation. It's gonna be SQL or SQL. Okay. But the full form you should always remember structured query language. And why we use a structured query language that we will learn as we progress in our live sessions. And guys, before we move, let me tell you if you find this really, really interesting, if you find it very uh something you can like come and stay and learn and ask your question and we learn together, make sure you subscribe our channel. And the reason is not that I'm going to come live or something. The reason is I'm going to post the timings. It's gonna be always 12 noon GMT time or UTC time, but sometimes it may like fluctuate. So I will keep post 5 or 6 hours before in the post section or communal post. So you get be aware that this is gonna happen and it's gonna be every day. I will try I come every day because I need to learn and prepare for my interview. So I am also preparing for my interview. Trust me, guys, it's gonna be helpful for you. Let's get back to into this one. SQL or SQL. Okay, so it's a structure query language that we learn. So it's a relational database stored from. So structure query language is a programming language for storing and processing information in a relational database. Okay, so this is something we understood. Why don't we like store this information? So let's do one more thing. Let's whatever we are learning, let's store in the form of some a file. So later we can convert into some sort of I can say notes, and it will be helpful for the people who want to have a quick glance before their interview. So I think this gonna work as dual purpose for us. One is learning, and second one is creating notes. Okay, so SQL. So our thing is what is SQL that we'll learn from here. SQL query, structure query language SQL is a programming language for storing and processing information in a relational database. So first thing we understood that is a programming language. That means we can use it to program different things. But its main purpose is storing and processing information, right? And that is interesting. So let's see what exactly it does. W3 school, let's go here. What is SQL? SQL is just accept. SQL is a standard language for accessing and manipulating database. Okay, SQL stand for structured query language. SQL lets you access and manipulate database. SQL become a standard of the American National Standard Institute in 1986 and of the International Organization for Standard. Okay. What is database then? Okay. Hmm. Okay. So let me quickly take you back here and what we learned. Okay, so let me quickly paste the let it remove. So SQL, the first thing that we learned here, the very first thing, SQL or SQL, the pronunciation, and it's a stand for structured query language, right? And why it is called, we're gonna learn in upcoming days, so don't worry about this one. So the definition is SQL is a programming language, programming language that I get to know. Second one, we use it to store and process data. So first thing is SQL is a programming language. That means is a language that we can learn and use it, but for two things. First one to store and then process the data. But where? In a relational database. Okay, so right now there are a couple of keywords that we need to understand or learn at least. Why SQL is called structured query language? That's the first question we need to understand. Why it is called structured query language. We will answer this one. Okay, let's see how it is. Second one is it is a programming language. That means we can learn it. But if it's a programming language, where we can gonna program it? So where we can program SQL. Second question, right? I understood it's a programming language. That means I can learn it as a language and implement it in a computer, right? So, so take it as let's see. If a child is born, if you keep that child in America, he's gonna speak American. How? Because he will learn from his surrounding and then implement. And what's implementation? Speak in that language. If you keep that child in Japan, he is gonna learn Japanese from his surrounding, and then he gonna implement that knowledge in the form of talking in Japanese. Similarly, you gonna learn SQL language and it's gonna implement in your computers. Okay. The same, the same concept. But the question is, why is it structured query language and how we can program in SQL? Now, when and where we can program is SQL programming language, right? Third question from this one we can understand, or we need to understand what is relational database, right? We need to understand these three things, then it will at least give us a picture that what exactly SQL is, why we are using it, okay, why it is called structure query language. If it's a programming language, the course or the topic in this one, that's roadmap, where I can program this one, and what is relational database. If I'm clear with this one, trust me, you will understand what is SQL and you can answer and define a SQL. Okay, let's get back to question number one, why it is called structured query language. And that's why I started loving AI nowadays, because it can give you answer on like this. But we will try to see if we can get the answer from the cloud, and then we will go to the some AI. Okay, why SQL is called structure query language? See here, this one, SQL was invented in 1970 based on relational data model. It was initially known as a structured English language, SEQUEL. This SQL? Oh my god. I told you that. Do you remember I told you it can pronounce it to be SQL and this is SQL. Oh, this is interesting. This is the first time I get to know like SQL was invented in 1970 based on the relational data model. It was initially known as structured English query language. This is interesting, dude. This is interesting. 1970. I think we should keep it here. So you remember nowadays we call it SQL, but why we call it SQL? Because in 1970 it was invented based on relational data model. And what is a relation? We will learn it. Okay, you remember the relational database? You remember that, right? So once we learn it, we automatically gonna learn this. It was initially known as structured English query language. That's why SQL. So one out of two, dude, this is new to me as well. Like why it is called SQL. I'm just not aware of this one. So it's called SQL because when it was initially created in 1970 or invented in 1970, it was known as a structured English query language. That's why S for structure, E for English, QU, the first two letter of query, uh, QUE, the three letters like this one. Okay, so to give it a name, they make it like this. Okay. So S for structure, E for English, QUE for query, the first three alphabet of query word, and then N for language. That's why it's called SQL. It's literally interesting, dude. That's interesting. Okay. What we are here for is why it is called structure query language. The term was shortened to SQL. Okay, SQL. Oracle, formerly known as Relational Software, become the first vendor to offer commercial SQL relational database management system. But why SQL is called structured? Okay, this what is a structure in a structure query language? Stack Overflow. Dude, like if you are new to the uh, coding world, if you don't want to use AI at the first class, and you should, I think you can use it AI, but if you want to develop that mind of one who brainstorm, I think you should not go to AI quickly and take some time to do and debug the things, because the more you will see, I'm not against of AI. I think we should use AI extensively because it's gonna reduce a lot of things for you. At times you don't have time and you want to do the things as fast as possible, and AI does that help. When you're creating something for new, I think you should use your brain to do the brainstorming and this other stuff, because in a long run, trust me, it will be helpful for you. It will keep your mind alive. Not like this, just simply go into your AI and then simply ask that this is the question, answer this one. It's then it's not your own original thought process, right? Because if the AI can give you an answer on a question A, trust me, it may be also giving the same answer to another person who is also putting that question A. But if you understand the question A and you have a thought process, okay, I can solve in this manner, and then go to some AI tool and ask him that this is the question, and I thought my thought process is this one. What do you think? What's good or not on this particular thought process? And can you improve this one? Now, this is more legit because now the thought process is yours. What you are doing, you are taking the assistance from AI and then try to build and improve that thing. Okay, so AI should be used as an assistant, not as a boss. Okay, see the difference how you use the AI. Okay, let's get back to here. We were there, like, what does the structure word in SQL means? Okay. The original name was SQL. We learn it. So why? Because in 1970, when it was initially invented, it was known as a structured English query language. So this was structure E for English, QUE for query, L for language. That's why it called SQL initially, but then they shortened the name to SQL. Okay, so this is something new that I learned, buddy. Interesting. As I understand it, SQL is actually an abbreviation of SQL or Structured English Query Language. It was meant to have queries that everyone could read. The structure part means that you can only use a structured English. That is select call one from table, but not give all the column. Okay. Mostly because it's a acronym, they need a S to make SQL. Okay. SQL, the standard that was later developed from code work. provides a means of describing data with its natural structure only. That is without superimposing any additional structure for machine representing purpose. I don't get it. Uh, what is structure? Let's see what is why SQL is called. I think Quora also have something. Okay. What is a structure query language? Structure query language required. Okay. Structure query language is a domain specific standardized programming language used to interact with relational database management system RDBMS such as MySQL, SQL Server, IMDB2, Postgres, and Oracle database. You guys understand? Dude, I just asked like why it is called structure query language. I never asked for anything else. Why SQL called a structure query language? What is structure in it? I think this is the one we are looking for, right? Uh, the original full name of SQL was SQL, which stood for Structured English Query Language, a language which has been structured in English, or let's say English like query language, which follow the syntax structure of English. Examples like right. Apparently, IBM lawyer found that a company. Huh? The original name of SQL was SQL for Structured English Query Language. Okay, apparently IBM lawyer found that a company had already trademarked SQL for something, so they got the name changed to Structured Query Language or SQL. But you can see the structure was invented to apply to English, and that it was a language for a specific database query in English structure. SQL design as a language was heavily influenced by COBOL, one of the major business language at the time. COBOL is another rather verbose language that take a structured English approach to code. Structured in structure query language refer to the way data queries and operations are structured according to formal rule and model. Server distinct meaning of a structure applies structure data model. Relational model. SQL operate on relational table with a fixed schema, name, column, defined data type, and constraint. That schema gives data an explicit machine verified structure, rows, and column. Normalization. Data is organized into well defined relations to reduce redundancy and express relationship explicitly. Oh my gosh. I was looking for a simple answer. Let's go to AI. I am using Cloud AI. Okay. Why? Okay, yes. Great. Why SQL is called structured query language, right? Why? Guys, why? So SQL is called structured query language because of what each word represents. Structured data in SQL is organized in highly structured format. How table with rows and columns defined data types, constraint and relationships. Okay. You also write queries in a specific structure syntax with a defined grammar. Ah, the primary purpose of SQL is to query ask question of database, retrieving, filtering, sorting, and aggregating data beyond query. It also handle inserting, updating, and deleting data, but query is the core function it was built around. Language. It's a formal language with its own syntax, key, and rule, just like any programming language. However, unlike traditional programming language, SQL is derivative. You describe what you want and not how you get it. Oh, the database engine figure out that how. Oh, initially structure IBM Donald this one and under the name shortened to SQL for a trademark reason, but the structure idea. And this is literally good, dude. I think we should add this in our structure here. SQL 02. Mm-hmm. Can SQL structured query language. And to make it look bit fancy, let's do this way. Is increase its size a bit bigger, and now now it's good. SQL SQL is a structured query language because of each word represents structured data so data in SQL is stored in a highly structured format. Data in SQL. Table with row and column, define data type, constraint, and relationship. You can also write queries in a specific structure syntax. Now, what is query? The primary purpose of SQL is to query ask. Okay, it's a formal language with its own syntax. Okay, okay. Guys, so if we need to learn about the SQL, we need to focus on three words that it contains: a structure, then query, and then language. And I think pretty much we are clear. But let me get back to you. If we are able to answer these three things, trust me, these three things will be shorted. So the very first thing that we learn from SQL was structured. Okay. Hello, Moto. I'm sorry, I just got a call. So structured. So the structure here means the data that we can play using the SQL or SQL programming language is in a specific or well-defined format. So the data should be in a particular format. And what format is in tabular format. Then only I can use SQL. That's the first thing that I understood as part of structure. Okay. So let's give an example. If I have a text, like somebody came and he write about himself that my name is this, I look handsome, I run this, I do this. Can I use that information or that data in SQL programming language? No. Why? Because all the data that only SQL can process is tabular formatted data. That means if a data is available in tabular form, row and column, okay? Tabular form means like this. It should visually, visually, I'm telling you, visually look like this, where the data is represented in row and column. And this is a high level overview. Okay, there will be more things into it as we were learning there, right? I don't remember specifically, but this is the thing. So if I have a data, or if you found a data in this format, when I say in this format is it can be represented or visually represented into row and column. That means it is eligible to be utilized in SQL query or in the SQL language, or I can use the SQL language on and over this thing. That's the first thing. That means if you if you can find a data in tabular form, which form? Tabular form, that is row and column, then only I can use the SQL. That's come the structure. Okay, first thing. We are clear on this one, okay? So data should be in a particular format. That format is tabular form, that is row and column. So any data in this world that can be represented or visually represented into row and column, then I can use SQL on top of it. Okay. That's the eligibility of data on which I can use SQL. First thing, okay, from structure that we learned. Second thing in the SQL was query. I learned that if a data that is present into a row and column format, I can use something called query that SQL provide to get information out of that data. And what kind of information? I think it was there, right? Like, oh, this one. Retrieving data, filtering data, sorting data, and aggregating data. Okay. So if I have a data in tabular form, then I can get the information, get the insights. I think insights is the right word, because what we are trying to get is we're trying to get meaningful information, information, right? We are trying to get the meaningful information from this type of data. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, so query can help you to get the meaningful information from the data that can be stored in form of tabular format or row and column. Okay, what kind of meaningful information? Firstly, I can get or retrieve data. Second, I can get aggregated data. If you don't know what is aggregation, don't waste your time as we progress. I think somewhere is gonna come, because if it is providing it as a feature, obviously we're gonna learn as part of roadmap. So don't worry about this one. Or what else was there? Hmm, filter and sorting. Okay. Filter and sorting. And I think based on this one, I think I understood one thing. Let's take an example. When you were in your college time, right? So you have few things, a few information that is associated with you. When I say with you, it's not exactly mean you as an individual. Okay. So when I say there is certain info associated with you. When I say with you, not individually, I want or I mean is like as a student of that institute. Okay. What are the information about you as a student you hold in your college days? First one is your student ID, right? That uniquely identify you. Okay. So for example, I can say like uh uh okay, like say BT. BT is Bachelor of Technology, okay? Uh it's like 2026 batch. Okay, now it's really specific, right? Uh, in bachelor technology, you can do like many of the streams. Like you can be electrical engineer, you will be a mechanical engineer, you can be a civil engineer, you can be computer science engineer. So CSE, computer science engineer. Okay, and then your student ID. Suppose you are roll number 46046. Because usually they are not more than 300 or like 999 student in a particular stream for that year. So three can suffice our requirement at the time. So this become a unique ID that identify you as a student, not as an individual. For individual, I think your passport number can do that. Okay, so let's leave that one. But as a student, can identify you uniquely, right? Then what is the next as an student information? Student name. Okay, say you are Robert. Okay, Nile. What more information you can be stored? For example, what can be? It can be what can be your age. Age. Uh, since if it's a male, he can identify himself as 20 years old. If it's a female, then we can leave it as a blank. Okay. Let's keep it aside. About student gender. Gender means like what sexual orientation you are born with, not what you feel. Okay, so don't get confused with this one. So gender is like what is the gender you are born with. So it can be male or female. Right now we are taking it male and male. Okay, so these are the information of robot as a student, not as an individual, as a student. Perfect. As an individual, it can have the group blood group. It can have his home address. It can have his father, mother, brother name, his individual phone number. There's many things, bank account. That become individual information, and this becomes student information, right? See, for the same person, there can be two type of information. What can be personal information that I just talked about. Second one is as a student. Once he graduated and get into professional level of working or in professional market, then he have another form of information that define him as a professional. Okay, so this information define it as a personal. This information define him as a student. This information define him as a professional, like where he work, how much the salary is, what's the department he work for, what is boss, what are the employees working under him. So you see, for the same person at the different instance of the life, he have different information that represent his current status, right? So this kind of information of an individual can be stored in a tabular form, right? Like suppose there is a robot, there is one Mickey, right? So we can store the information like this and so on. You can see there is a stacking up, but ultimately it look like a table where row represent an individual information or information about an individuality. So individuality can be a live person or an inanimated person. That means inanimated object. Like I can write the information about apple. For example, what can I write about this apple? I can write his diameter. I can write his length, origin, price of buying, price of selling. Okay, so see from this apple inanimated object, I can also drive information. So cool, right? That's pretty cool. So this also information I can store it. So remember, tabular form of data means row and column where row represent entity. It can be a living entity or inanimated entity, and column represent its attribute or the information about that object. So remember this thing. Okay. So row represent object, column represent the attribute of the entity information. Okay. When you club them together, like you see this clubbing, right? When you club them together, it form a table. So if I have to ask you guys, why don't you define what exactly table is? Table for me, I think means collection of object with similar attributes, right? Because row and column, if everyone have the same number of column, that means they represent the same entity, at least based on our thing. So in SQL, table is a collection of similar object with the same attribute. Similar, not the same, but similar. Because Rahul and Nikki can't be same, right? They are male and female, so different individuals. So similar entities with same attributes. Attributes like student ID, student name, student age, student gender. So that is called a table. Got it? So let's revise what we have learned so far. SIG initially is called as SQL. It was initially known as a structured English query language. Later, it was renamed to SQL because IBM found out this name was already trademarked, so they can't use it for official or commercial use. So they shortened this name to SQL. That stand for Structured Query Language. Structure means we can operate SQL as a programming language on a data that is stored in a fixed format. And what fixed format is? Tabular format. Hello. Buddy, just give me a sec. I'm getting a call again. Oh, dude, that's I hate this calls. It's a scam call. Uh, Okay, let's get back to this one. So it was where we were. Okay, so the data is stored in a fixed format, or that we call. I don't have much time. Tabular, tabular format. In tabular format, the data look like this, where row represent an entity, column represent attribute or the characteristic of that object, and the collection of similar entities of same attributes or characteristics is called table. Okay, so if I'm able to represent data in tabular form, table form, I can use SQL as a programming language. So what programming language does is help us to process the data. Okay, and the way we write our SQL or SQL programming language, we write in a format called query, where we write a query and it give us the information or insight or meaningful information from our Tableau data. And what is meaningful information here stands for? Meaningful information stand for like retrieving data, uh, filtering data, sorting data, or aggregating data. Okay, so there are many type of operation we can perform on Tableau data using SQL as a programming language. So query means how we write SQL programming language to operate on this data. Okay, so this is the data. We understood what kind of data we play with in SQL and how to play it and what we can do with the SQL are this thing and how we can do it using SQL format. Okay, so now if I talk about the language, when I talk about the query, a SQL or SQL as a language, it use a very structured format. So if you remember, we have the definition here, right? Ready for us. So let's quickly deep dive into it. So it's a formal language with its own syntax. Okay. So we understood query means like we can ask the question to that tabular format data and get the information or insight. So query stand for that. But SQL as a language have its own syntax and keywords and rules like any programming language. However, Unlike traditional programming language, SQL is declarative. This is important. You describe what you want, not how you get it. Let me give an example. I think if you have done the programming, basic level of programming, you will know what happens in programming language like Java and Python. Suppose there is an information in tabular form, okay, and I want you to get the data for top five. So in Python, this one first you have to go into this data set, retrieve it, and load into memory, okay, and then you need to process the data. And once processing done, then you will retrieve this data. So now you have to write a code for the first step of reading, then loading, then extracting the data, and then representing in any format. Like if you are using some kind of software, the output may be into your screen itself. The output you might want to put an, into another file. So it become an extra thing, right? But in SQL as a programming language is declarative. So what it does, it doesn't matter for it where it is stored, how it is stored. It doesn't matter. What you want as a person, I want you remember this student data, right? Okay, as an individual, Robert, he wants his information to check if the information stored about him as a student is right or wrong. Okay, so what he want to get information about himself from the data of all the student across the university, and he want to. It doesn't matter where it is stored, how it is stored, what is going to do, what it doesn't matter for him. What you want, he just need that information. So robot will go and use software that help you to play tabular data using SQL. So this software is called Relational Database Management System. This enables you to store tabular form of data, and this helps you play or operate on this tabular form of data using SQL. You got it? So relational database management system is nothing but a software that helps you to store tabular form of data and then give you access, operate on this table using SQL or SQL as a programming language. Got it? So this is that 60% of my knowledge coming into it, and something I knew also I learned it, and I guess you guys are also learning it. Okay. So now we need to talk about SQL as a programming language. So in a language, you need to understand how we're gonna use it or leverage it. What is its structure? So you need to understand its structure, then you need to understand its syntax, and then the keyword and the scenario on which we're gonna operate. So scenario means like operation, nothing much. So if you understand these four basic thing of programming language, you become like slightly near to average programmer. Slightly, not really this one. So you are in between a beginner to a average programmer. If you know this one in between, okay, not exactly. But once you start using into different format, different scenarios, then you become average. And when you start developing something on your own, then you tends to become into expert level of programmer. Okay. So this is something we're gonna learn as we progress. So so we are literally good till so far, right? We learn about SQL, how it get converted to SQL, what is a structured, what is query, what is language, and we're gonna learn about its structure, syntax, scenario usage, and many other things as part of the roadmap. Okay, so when we started our live session, we ask ourselves a question: What is SQL? We are good with this one. Are we? Good. Why it is needed? So we understood, right? Like good amount of data that is available in organization is mostly present into tabular form. So it become a good chunk of all the type of data that is available around the market. So to make sure to leverage its usage as much as possible, people come up with the logic of SQL as a programming language that make it easier to access, store, and process the data, tabular form of data. That's why it was needed. Okay. And I think now that I think of, I think there is one more thing we can do if I have. Let me quickly check the time. Okay, I have like 10 minutes more. I will talk about that. And that gonna answer you why it is needed. I think I should do that. I will cover this one. Pretty much we understood. What is SQL? Why it is needed? Because we need to process tabular form of data in more efficient way. That's why SQL came into picture. And that's the prerequisite that the data should be stored in a tabular form. Then only we will be able to use SQL. And query and language we will learn as we move, and then you will understand why query declarative, it is called declarative language. Okay, how should we learn it? That means roadmap, and that second is roadmap. So I will quickly answer the last two, why it is needed and the roadmap for SQL, and then we will close today's live. So this is first live, but I literally love it. Even I love a lot of things. I think I will be doing more of, I will be doing this daily anyways, but it's fun. It's fun. It's literally fun. Okay. So question number two was why it was needed. Okay. So let's take an example. If I ask you guys, why don't you go and write 10 names of your best friend in a piece of paper? Just write it for me. Let me grab some more. Okay. You took some time, right? Now, when you write 50 more names into it, just quickly write it. 60 name, right? Okay. Then how about write their corresponding age as well? So write the age of your 60 friends that you just wrote it. Do that. Now do one more thing for me. Okay. So in a paper, write 60 names of your friends with their age. Can you do me one thing? Can you give me the average age? Average or age? Now, dude, to add and then divide by 60 is gonna take a lot of time for you guys, right? And technically, this is a tabular form of data, right? The object represent an entity, and the entity here is your person. And what are the characteristics? Characteristic or attributes are the name and the age. And since we are storing the same and same or similar entity with the same characteristic, it can be called as table, right? So this table can be stored in Excel, correct? So now can you give me the average here now in Excel rather than doing it manually? Answer is simple. You will simply write AVG and select the column like B1 to B60. And that will give you answer, right? Simple. It's simple, 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 simple. Right. So the page or the paper that we were using manually, it took a lot of time to do certain operation and give us some meaningful information. And that's why we switched to another form of data storage where we are able to perform the same operation using predefined operation into that uh, software Excel, that is formula average, like AVG. But if I ask you, can you give me average of all people from B1 to B60? But the caveat here is I need only people who have either four four alphabet in their name Or the second alphabet is H. Now, dude, you know, in Excel, you can use formula to operate on a data set, get the meaningful information. But when the requirements started getting complex, it become really hard to write proper formulas or macros. And somewhere after a certain number of rows in Excel, if you perform like if you store million, 1 mil of this one and start using this operation, trust me, it will hang. It will hang your Excel. So that means in terms of scalability, Excel fail, right? In terms of complex insights, Excel fail. And paper failed in scalability, complex, even simple insight. Okay, it's not able to give you simple insight, but Excel is able to give you mid-size of insights plus scalability is good enough, but not too good. And that's where we need another form of software that can help us to tackle these two things, scalability and able to implement complex requirement complex insight that we needed. And that's where SQL plus tabular form data came into existence. And the software that was built to do this one is called RDBMS, Relationship Database Management System, that help you store the data in tabular format and help you to operate on it using SQL as programming language. So SQL help you to scale, help you to implement complex queries that give you the insight faster in a simple form. Okay, so now we understood why SQL was needed and why it is better than paper and Excel. Now, lastly, move to question number three that we need to answer, roadmap. So if you want to check the roadmap, it's available in my GitHub as I already showed you guys. So if you go to my GitHub, I will provide the link, the number 402 hero. And here the syllabus is here that we're gonna cover on the daily basis. So don't worry. So today was introduction is not here, so it's just to introduce you. The first week is gonna be like I think it was about the March, but we will start early. What is SQL? What is database? What is RDMS? So don't worry, this is the first one and nobody joined, so I'm okay. From tomorrow onwards, we're gonna take this as a start, okay? And everything we're gonna learn one by one, 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 one by one. So if you are joining the this one, make sure you saw the previous videos so that you know where we are going and how we are going. But before we start for the day, I will make sure that I give you a bit of recap from the previous video. And suppose there is what is SQL, what is database, and what is RDMS. So this three is the only thing we're gonna discuss, and the video, the live, not gonna extend more than 1 hour and 30 minutes, not more than that. Okay. Uh, that's it for today, and I hope you love this.